Welcome to episode 2 of the Matrix Match Fishing Masterclass. Today I'm down at Manor Farm Leisure in the beautiful setting of Evesham. I've got some members of the Matrix team with me, some real stars of the game. I've got former Fishermania winner Warren Martin, I've got former Fishermania winner and current Part D master Andy Geldart, and top all-rounder and genuine legend of the sport Mark Pollard. I'm going to be joining them. We're now going to go over to Craig Butterfield, who's going to draw the pairs and talk about what tactics all four of us have got to use.
Right, as we said, it's a pairs match, and we're going to draw it at random. All your names are in the bucket. First two names we pull out, that'll be the first pair. The two that are left, that'll be the other pair. First name is Warren, and you're going to be partnering. Les. So the other pair, Polly, Andy.
Suppose we'll have to do with that then.
Right, that's not all. We've drawn for the pairs, but we're also, to add a little twist, we're also going to draw for tactics. We've got 4 tactics in the bucket. We've got the long pole, we've got the short pole, including the margins, we've got the waggler and the feeder. Whatever tactic you're drawn, that is your tactic for the day. There's no changing, there's no arguing, there's no spitting your dummy out. That's what you fish all day. The first one, we'll call this a Warren. And Warren, you've drawn the pellet waggler.
No change there then.
The next one, this is for Andy. You've drawn the long pole.
That'll do. That'll be good on there. That'll do.
Les,
I don't want method on there.
don't want the method?
No feeding.
Guess what you've drawn?
Feeding.
Short pole and the margin.
Oh.
So Polly, you're left with a method.
Lovely drawing.
So these are the tactics. You stick to them all day. You don't change. Short pole, no further out than 5 metres. That's the limit that we're going to set. The long pole, no closer than 9 metres. The feeder, that will also include the straight lead, and then cage feeder, method feeder, any tactic. And the waggler, that includes bagging waggler or pellet waggler. No floating
Any
feeders.
restriction on how far I can chuck it or how short I can chuck it?
No, you can chuck any far bank to the near bank.
Margin feeder then.
That's it. Any more questions?
No, that's it.
No. Let's get set up and let's get cracking on.
Good luck. Come on, boys.
This is yours, Andy.
This looks nice.
Plenty of fish girls, eh?
My home for the day.
You need to catch £300 to go with my 50.
I've only got that and that.
What do you reckon about yours?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've got a bit of a rough draw fishing the feeder on straight lead. I'm going to chuck the margin.
I
so
think
that,
they've bumped you up here, haven't they?
yeah, tap me right up.
Polly's peg looks good though, there.
Polly should catch £400 really,
Oh
shouldn't
yeah, yeah. Well, he's got 4 spare pegs.
he? Yeah. End peg.
He's got a Citron Picasso as a marker. And he's probably going to feed to his right to bring more fish in for him.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Polly should
Outside,
win, shouldn't he?
outside assistance.
Yeah.
End peg. Solid.
And hopefully you'll catch them up in the water all day long and we'll have it away.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
we'll have them.
yeah, I reckon.
Bring me the tape. I'm saying that is 5 metres there. I ain't having this, brother. I'm being accused there. Look, that is 5 metres. Yeah. That's all right. You've got the tape there. Give me the tape.
That's going to be 5 metres.
What is? It's wrong. Warren! You're supposed to. I'm being double teamed here.
That's 2.5.
Bear in mind, this is a bricklayer's tape. I bet you don't find 5 metres this easy at work.
Yeah, I'll put that to the end.
That's 5.3 metres, is that?
What's that
You're
is?
cheating, Les Thompson.
I mean,
5.3 metres. You can only go to there.
They took a section off me, Warren. Oh, unreal. Told you that was 5 metres. I did say that was 5 metres. All I was doing, seriously now, because like you always want to know what you plumbed up and where you're fishing, it pays to just have a little wander past you. It could drop off. I need to check exactly a metre. Exactly. I just needed to check that if I was going to feed it there, I didn't want all my bait to slide down the slope, so I need to see if it was just nice and flat, and luckily it was, and I got accused. Wrong, man. I thought you found that waggler. You better watch him. He'll come and measure that in a minute.
Well, they've all had about 90 minutes to set up all of them. All the tackle's prepared, the bait's prepared, they're all itching to start. Hopefully they're all going to catch plenty of fish. It's a nice day. The fish moving about everywhere, and hopefully we're going to catch a lot of fish. So we'll get them all started, and hopefully it's going to be action all the way. Right, everyone, time to fish, let's go!
Time. We're in. Even though it won't be time for me for another 3 hours probably. Will it? How far do you say again?
You put another section on that.
I'm feeding the edge. I need to hope that these fish turn up a little bit sooner, otherwise I could be very tender, like a college party gone wrong. From both sides here. Very, very tender.
So what's your plan?
My plan? Do you want me to run you through all 5 metres of it? Yeah. Fishing pellets with little bits of corn there, try and catch as much as I can for the early part of it, and then hopefully we won't be too far behind if and when they turn up. It looks lovely though. I mean, I've got a pallet down there, so I'm going to fish towards the concrete pallet. I've just cleaned all of it out and trimmed and pruned away. Got a nice little depth as well, depth that I want to find between a foot and 2 foot's the optimum depth, but I've come right into the cover there and it's just a little bit deeper. Bottom's nice and solid and clean. So it's maggots and ground bait down here, pellets there. Hopefully, with that little bit of wind coming in, I might nick a few shallow as I'm feeding out the end a bit later on. Like I say, I fancy Polly to catch up that edge, and Andy's definitely going to catch shallow. But my partner's awesome on that waggler. Awesome. He strikes fear into anglers, he does. Look at him, poised. Look at a fish at 14 metres here in Marpeg, it's a crime. Travesty. He's windmilling for fun. Oh, stitched up.
Right, so we've started now, and obviously I'm fishing long pole today, and I'm expecting, well, hoping to catch most of my fish shallow. I've started with a rig about 14-inch deep, so I've seen quite a few carp cruising about and topping. So hopefully they'll have this. I've set 2 or 3 shallow rigs up with different length lines in between pole tip and float, just in case they're wary of the shadow of the pole. And also I've set 2 deck rigs up as well. It's about 6-7 foot. One with a band on and one without a band. Obviously the banded one is to fish banded pellets, and the other one has just got a size 16 hook on for fishing a piece of meat or a full worm. I've had quite a lot of results recently fishing on the bottom underneath my shallow line with a full worm on. Just seems to, I think it just stands out that bit better.
When the match has started, I think I've drawn the short straw. I've got a fish straight lead method feeder. But as I'm on the end, I'm loose feeding 6mm pellets at about 15-20 metres out there. Chucked a method feeder tight to the platform, which is probably about 40 yards chuck. There's a bit of a breeze, it's making it a little bit awkward. I've only got a small gap, probably of about a metre maximum in length to chuck to, which is a concrete base of like the platform we're sitting on. First chuck out, I had an F1 about £2. We've been fishing about 10 minutes. I'm looking to fish there for the first hour, see what happens, so I'll get a bit of bait in. And then loose feed pellets, like I say, at about 20 metres, and chuck the straight lead over that with a banded 8mm pellet. I get a lot of action on the tip, whether they're liners or not, I'm not sure, but a lot of activity out there. So, and that's only my 3rd chuck, so hopefully in the next 15-20 minutes I should start getting a few more fish. A little bit in first. Out there, so I'll give it just a light squeeze. There. So indication straight away. With our liners, we get a fish on that'll go right round, that'll just take the tip round. But if there is a lot of F1s there, you will get a lot of little twitches. Very fussy feeders, F1s.
Oh, my partner's empty. Oh, 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 oh. You got 2 now, mate. Oh, keep up the good work. They'll be here in a bit.
This is one of the really important tips, I think, when fishing the method feeder, and it's a mix, and I want to show you how to prepare it. This is the mix I use more often than not, and as you can see the micro pellets in there. Where it's not just ground bait, it's offering all those particles, and when you cast your method feeder into your swim, and providing you cast it in correctly, when it lands on the bottom, as it starts to soak up, it all falls away from the feeder, leaving all these particles. And when the carp move in, or even if it's bream moving or the fish move in, sucking at that method feeder, they disperse it all round the feeder and in a larger area. Whereas if it was just micro pellets, although they would disperse, they'd only go so far. But with all these fine particles, they push further. And I'm a great believer in feeding fish, draw feeding fish, and that slightly larger area draws more fish in. Very good method to use, very good mix. Now let me just show you how to prepare that mix. Don't just use your pellets straight from the bag, soak them first. Now all I do is simply pour them into a pot, and I'll pour water over them, but just put enough that you think you're going to use in a session. There's no point doing too many, and bear in mind they do soak up and they spread well in the ground bait mix. So I'll just pour water on them. Just spread them about with your fingers, so the water is probably about, I don't know if I tip it you won't see that because it's line level, but it's probably about no more than ½ an inch over the pellets in the tub, and just leave them. And put them aside, and then they will soak that water up, probably takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes maximum. Then once they've soaked it up, that I'll show you in a moment, we can loosen them with our fingers. Now while they're soaking up, I'll move them out of the way and I'll just show you how I actually knock my ground bait up, because you must sieve your ground bait. If you don't sieve your ground bait, you're not producing a fine mix. However much you compress it in the mould, when the water gets into it, it just breaks it all away and the fish start swimming around and nosing around. It all breaks up. You don't get no lumps forming. If you don't riddle your ground bait, you'll get lumps forming and that fills the fish up. And it's just trying to feed the fish, but keep them more active in your peg for a longer space of time, or the duration if it's 5 hours. You want them feeding all the time. You don't want to be casting your ground bait, filling them up, the fish go off, and you're left with no fish to feed. And so if they're milling around trying to fill themselves up, because it's all small particle bait that's broken away, they're trying to suck it all up, you'll keep them active in your peg longer and you'll catch more. Because I've said before, the feeding fish, I believe, draw other fish, and it just will catch you more fish during the session, be it a pleasure session or in a match as competitions that I fish, and that's trying to get the most out of that peg that you've drawn in the 5 hours you've got to fish. So let me just show you how I knock the ground bait up. Always add water to the ground bait. Never add the ground bait to the water. So just empty, I'm going to use a bag for this session, so I'll empty a bag in and I'll add the water to the ground bait. And I'll mix it and I'll just make it just over damp because it soaks up the water. So I'll just over dampen that. Give it a good mix. And I'll leave that to stand for probably 5 minutes. And then the most important thing I'll show you is I push it through a riddle to get a finer mix. Because if you look at that now, there's lumps. Big lumps in it that would fill the fish up. If that's trying to mould it around and feed, there's big lumps that would break away and the fish would suck in those lumps. And I'll show you when we push it through the riddle, because you get lumps on top of the riddle, but they all push through. Right, so I've left it now 5 to 10 minutes, and as you can see the ground bait soaked up the water, but there's lumps in there. I'll simply just pour this into another container. Set my riddle on top of my bucket. And now pour this on the bucket and run it through the riddle. Let me just show you this, what I spoke about earlier. Now look at those lumps there. Now if you was moulding that round about, these lumps would break away and these fish would suck these up and it would fill them up very quick. And all we do is we push them through the riddle, making sure every lump goes through, there's no waste. That's the way of getting rid of all the lumps and giving a perfect mix. So we haven't wasted any at all. There it is there. Now I'll pour it into the ground bait bowl. And if I bring their pellets into view now, you can see where they've soaked the water up. And they're lovely and they're soft. And also being soft, the fish can suck them in better. I think they just feel more at home. If they come in sucking hard pellets, they might not like it, but those soft pellets will keep them there longer. And that's what I do believe. And all we do is put a few handfuls of this in the mix, mix it round, and we're just adding the particle bait that I showed you in the mix that I had done earlier. Now I always start by putting a couple of handfuls in, like I've done there. You can always add more of the pellets, the soaked timber pellets to the mix if needs be. If you feel the mix isn't quite right, we'll add some more particle bait. I tend to put a couple of handfuls into the mix. And if I start catching a lot of fish, I'll just add a few more, just to try and keep them occupied out there and you swim longer. But there you have it, a perfect method feeder mix. No lumps in there. And when you mould it in the ground bait, because that's just over damp and that's riddled through, that forms a lovely mould when you mould it into your mould around your method feeder, just right for those hungry fish waiting to take your hook. And also when you set your hook bait in amongst it and they come in sucking at it, they all break away and they pick up your hook bait easier. Give that a go, I think you'll find that's the best way to knock your mix up. Many anglers think method feeder fishing, 2 ounce or stiffest tip they could put in there, tighten right up on the fish, tighten right up onto your method feeder, To me, that's all wrong. There's two tips here. This one's a 2-ounce tip. As you can see, I'm putting a lot of pressure in bending that. If I get this one that's an ounce tip, look how soft that is. Very, very soft. And what I like about that is when you cast out, I'm a firm believer in leaving, although you sink your line, you gently tighten up, just release it so it's not right forward like that, just so there's just a slight little curve in the tip. Because what I believe is when the fish move round, some people say, oh, I was getting a lot of twitches on the method feeder, lots of twitches, they wouldn't develop. And I spoke to a lot of people and I said, how have you got your tip? Well, I've got it tightened right up, you know, as you do. I said, well, it's wrong, because what I think the fish feel, they feel that slight resistance. They suck the pellet and it's quite solid. So they either bolt and you've got them, or you get a little bit of a tap and nothing happens. And 9 times out of 10, if you set the tip just gently with just a slight bend in it, every time it's away. You get a proper bite, and the fish, 9 times out of 10, is properly hooked. Sometimes, if you tighten up, you'll get, oh, it's on, it's off. Well, that's where I think you've been having the tip too tight. You'll get an odd fish that will come off, but 9 times out of 10, a tip set loose, the hook will set better, and you'll get a better bite, and you'll get more bites, which means more fish on. Give it a try. That one really does work. Another tip is the way you land your method feeder fully loaded into your swim. You always cast to a clip, and I've watched a lot of anglers, when they cast to a clip, they're not always casting to that clip, so sometimes it drops short, or sometimes they cast to the clip and follow it forward with a big thump as it hits the water. You imagine that hitting the water with a big thump, that it hit it like that, it just takes the bait, as you've seen there, straight off of the method feeder. So that bait isn't going to the bottom with your hook bait, it's come off at the top. So that goes down, all that's left is an empty feeder and your hook bait, so you're not attracting the fish. That starts falling down on top of the area fishing and just puts the fish everywhere. So let me just load that feeder up again. And show you how I land the feeder in the water. There it is again, fully loaded. When you cast the feeder out, you overcast with your rod coming forward, and then just at the point you know it's going to hit your clip, you gently bring back to meet your clip in mid-air, slowing it down. So when the feeder lands, instead of landing like I just demonstrated, it lands flat on the water and goes down. Then you sink your line, just gently tighten up to it, and you know that your bait is on the bottom with your hook bait hidden in there for the fish to discover. It hasn't come out at the top and going everywhere in your swim.
Right, I'm obviously fishing the waggler today. I've got 3 rods set up. A 4 gram pellet waggler to fish up to 2 foot deep. A 6 grammer to fish a little bit deeper, maybe sort of half depth, which is 3.5, 4 foot. And then just a normal insert waggler, about 6 foot deep for fishing on the deck. I really wanted to fish 6 mils, but the wind's a bit tricky, blowing straight in the face, so I'm having to feed and fish 8 mils, which if we start catching proper carp's okay, but I'd be happier on 6 mils for the F1s, but I just can't do it. What I'm basically doing is, from right early on, it was obviously Andy's had a couple of fish slapping. I've had a couple of fish the second the floats hit the water. So what I'm doing is I'm feeding not that far out really, so I can have a cast beyond it, see if I get one on the drop, then I can feed, and then I can just reel back over that feed, so each chuck I'm giving myself 2 goes at getting a fish. there doesn't seem to be a lot of fish actually on the feed at the moment. They're just milling around the feed and cruising around on the top. So I think we'll probably get just as many just chucking out beyond the feed like that as we will when we reel back into the feed. Just missed one then. But hopefully later on we'll get them going properly in the feed, and that's when we'll get a big weight, hopefully.
Quite an important part of fishing shallow, that you need to try and keep feeding whilst you're playing a fish. Especially if it's a big carp, there's no rush to get it in. And it's sometimes more important to try and keep your peg going. So if you stop feeding for 5 or 10 minutes, it could mean you're losing your fish to your neighbouring angler, or just swimming that little bit further out because there's no feed going in. Like I said, there's no rush, because if it's a carp, like 4 to 10 pound, which they generally are, there's no need to rush, because it's, you know, you're going to be putting quite a decent weight in the net. And just take off at your top kit and just keep a few pellets going in all the time. I've started off feeding 4 millies and fishing a 6 mil on the hook, so it just makes that little bit of an extra splash when I'm slapping. I've got some 6s and 8s as well, just as a change, just in case the 4 mils don't work. I think it is a carp, this one. Yeah, there we are. Nice common carp. Probably 5 or 6 pounds. And just get him in the net. I'm still picking my catapult up to feed some pellets. Just make sure there's something going in all the time. Certainly gob that one. It's handy to have a clicker just to click, so you know exactly what's in your keep nets. I always, like, that was 5 or 6 pounds, so I've put 6 pounds on the clicker. Just so there's no harm in going over on your clicker, and so as long as you don't go over in your net, that's the main thing.
We're all right, Les. If I was on that other bank, this would be brilliant today. It's just not sitting there quite long enough before it comes back. Right, you'll notice that on the initial cast, I'm not sinking the line, I'm just casting it out and leaving it. What I'm trying to do there is get a really quick fish as it lands. So there's no time for the wind to affect the line or anything else, because I'm only looking to leave it there for maybe 5 seconds. When I'm coming into this closer line there where I'm pinging, I'm looking to leave it sitting in that feed for a little bit longer. So because we've got wind and drag and everything today, as you can see, I'm sinking the line just so I can have 10-15 seconds of decent presentation where I'm feeding. to maybe get a bite with it hanging in the feed like that, nearly. The other thing that does is obviously if you give it a very sharp twitch up, you're actually making the pellet rise back up. So rather than just winding it slowly to sink your line, if you give it a sharp dig, you're lifting your pellet up so it's then falling through the feed again, obviously saving your time reeling in and casting into the feed.
I know, Warren, I'm not trying to ruin your swim, I do apologise. It's a good job you're a nice guy, Warren, isn't it? He's a little bit angry, is this one? Yep. Just hooked another. This will be my fourth fish now if I get this one in. Like I've said before, it's just, there's no rush when you're catching proper carp, because you can soon amass quite a good weight. I've got 3 fish already for £17, so it's all about taking your time and making sure every fish gets in the net. I think this might be an F1 actually. Yep, big F1. Again, exactly the same. Get some pellets fed.
Right, you'll notice that I'm casting, feeding, twitching, casting, feeding, twitching, sort of pretty much non-stop really. Some days you can catch with the waggler just left there in the feed at whatever depth, and eventually they'll come to it. That was how I started today, but Andy's had a couple of fish before I've even had a bite, just slapping with not a lot of feed, so that to me said that the fish were very, very shallow and coming to the noise perhaps more than actually coming and eating the feed. They're coming into the noise to be inquisitive. So on days like this, perhaps the waggler isn't actually the best way of doing it. Maybe slapping on the pole would be, but the only way you're really going to catch on the waggler on days when they're really, really shallow is by constant feeding, twitching, recasting, because you're only really looking for that pellet to drop a foot, and then nothing's going to happen after that. So it is a case of working very hard for not that many bites sometimes.
It was always going to take time fishing that close, wasn't it? It's just fishing lines that normally you'd be fishing last or second half the match, trying to fish it at the start. Normally I'd pull this, but my partner's got 5. And my 3 skimmers, until this, it's a decent fish. No, yeah, 5 or 6 pound, isn't he? A decent fish. I need him. You'd think when they do, or if they do turn up on these 2 lines, they'll be big fish anyway. Should be. Because that's where you try and plunder your fish late on. Ooh. Ooh. I should be doing that really, should I? Not with my partner, I'm fine. I shouldn't, should I? I should be taking my time. Few and far between in these bites. Ooh, you'll do. We're on the board. We're on the board, Harry.
Good and less?
It's £5.
Oh.
That was just dripping a few pellets at 5 metres with a little soft 4mm And so I've been getting little indications and just lifting and dropping, lifting and dropping. It's just a little bit early for that line, to be fair, because normally that's where I'll be fishing a lot later on, but as I've been restricted, I've had one cheeky little look down the edge, but just literally a few pellets and just trying to just pick up some fish. I was tempted to fish casters there, but after 3 skimmers I thought, that's all I've done, just dripping pellets out. Lowering the rigging and waiting for a bite, but there's lots of fish further out. Hopefully that wind that's pushing in will bring them a lot closer. But I needed that because I think Andy's got 6, Warren's got 6, but we got 7 now, haven't we?
The other thing not to forget while you're fishing shallow on the Waggler is obviously a lot of that feed that you're feeding is getting to the bottom. So it's always worth either having a bomb or, as I have today, a deck Waggler rig set up, just to have a quick chuck over that same line, just to see if anything's settled on the bottom. I've set it up today, I've never been here before, I don't know, there could be bream and tench and there could be stuff in here that I'm not going to catch shallow, or the bigger carp could be sat on the bottom, so it's always worth having either a bomb or a deeper Waggler depending on the depth of it set up, just to have a chuck over it. I just had 2 quick casts on the bottom, didn't get a bite, so straight back to this, but maybe later on I'll have another couple of chucks just to see if something's followed the feed down later. As well as I've just spoke about going on the bottom and fishing shallow and everything, I've just been probably 15 minutes without a bite, and I've just deepened the shallowest rig up by no more than 3 inches, chucked it out, and it's just gone straight under. So don't just have a shallow one and a deep one. Your shallow one, you've got to constantly keep changing the depth and working up and down, and like this, a movement of 3 inches has just brought me a bite when I haven't had a bite for 15 minutes. And it's a better fish.
Because most of the area that I'm allowed to fish today is pretty much within throwing range, I did start introducing a bit of feed just to make a little bit of noise, but I've pretty much I've put the new soft toss pots, cracking little bits of kit. Let me keep the feed and everything really tight, right at the tip of the pole. They grip really well, they ain't going to damage, dead simple to clip on and off. I've put 3 of those on the kits. When I've been feeding, I've noticed that they ain't actually coming and responding to the feed, they've just been responding to a little bit of noise. The fish that have actually come in close, but I don't expect anything to be really start getting frantic and prolific and stacking fish up until much later. The lads further down, Warren and Andy, are bagging, catching shallow and catching on a Waggler. Mark's picked a couple of fish up on a method, but this end on what we're doing is much, much slower. But I expected that. I've put another one on me margin, but I'd normally like to just big pot that. When I'm margin fishing, I think it's just better to just take the fish and then feed it. If you just keep introducing, it can become a washing machine and becomes a right mess. Fair lookers. So I'll just fill this one back up, get back in, and see if we can try and coax something else. It looks like my partner's still catching anyway, so hopefully a late run for me. Might make it a little bit more respectable for us. Like I say, it's been more noise really, that they've been responding just to the patter on the water. If you look in relation where you've lowered that rigging, the pot is directly over the float. Whereas some other pots, they come further back, you need to reach forward, feed, or put it into a different position. With these pots, it's just a dead simple there.
Although the pellet Waggler is basically a simple method in that we're feeding pellets and casting a waggler at it. There's still not many days where you can literally just put it a set depth, feed 3 pellets every chuck and get a bite every chuck. It's something that needs a lot more thinking about, altering your feeding, altering your depth, altering actually how you're casting the waggler, i.e. cast it in the feed sometimes, cast it beyond the feed, twitch it back into the feed. Sometimes you'll find when you actually cast beyond your feed to then bring it back, you actually get bites beyond your feed. It's not just a case of setting it a set depth, feeding a set way and getting a bite a chuck. The feeding in itself, you've always got to play around with it the same as you have any other method. Feed a bit more, feed a bit less, feed more pellets less frequently, ping 2 or 3 pellets non-stop. It just really is a case of playing around with depths and feeding and everything on the day. It's very easy to sit there fishing a set way and say they're not feeding and it's not the method for the day, but if you really work at it, most days there will be some bites to have on it. I think the fish, when you're fishing shallow, obviously they're whizzing around high in the water, taking lots of loose-fed pellets, so I kind of think they snatch at it rather than confidently take it. So I like a pellet on short hair, so literally like this, the pellet's just coming off the back of the bend of the hook. When we're fishing on the deck, I think a longer hair, the fish will confidently decide he's going to go down and take it and will suck everything in without any problem. But I think for fish that are whizzing around snatching at baits, I'm far more confident with a short hair. Just gives them less chance to eject the bait, really. If someone were to ask me what the single most important thing about pellet waggler fishing is, I would say it's the ability to hold your rod, feed, but still be in control of your reel. It's no good just wedging it under your elbow because a quick dip bite, there's no way you can get it. A lot of bites now are just really quick dips, so you always need to be able to strike. So just by having a couple of fingers around the reel, leaving your thumb and your forefinger free, there's never a time when you can't strike, even with the catapult or even the pouch in your hand. It's purely practice. Sit in your garden for a couple of hours and practice with it. It does feel awkward to start with. The only things you need to consider really are your knees can only be 90 degrees or lower. If your legs are up here, you end up with your rod too high. You need to be able to keep your rod tipped down while you're doing it. The other thing you need to think about is we need to have our anti-reverse on while we're feeding. You've not got enough fingers to stop the spool, so have it turned on, hit a fish, and then it's ever so quick just to click it off. You're fishing at further enough range that there's enough stretch and enough give. You'll always have 5 or 10 seconds to switch it off. So simply hold your rod like that, thumb and forefinger free, pick your catapult up, pinching some pellets, down, drop it in and fire. Easy.
He's up the bank. He's on the bank.
Yeah, he's on the bank.
Did somebody just take that pleasure angler out in the back? Andy, have you still got any of them Ardats from sight in your van just for these two over here?
I've swapped about with different lengths of hook lengths. I'm just on a banded pellet, and just out of the blue, the tip went round. Just one of them freak bites, I think. Trying to get under here, there's trees and everything. There we go. Oh, a lovely F1, I think. Yeah, it's an F1. Beautiful fish. Bit bigger than a skimmer. Huh? Just a little skimmer. There's an F1, about £3. Yeah, just a bite out the blue. Looks like there's another one. It's very hard though. Bites are very few and far between. I'll plod on, just trying to help my partner out. Whether he's still catching, I don't know. Straight away again. Incredible. Just when they switch on to feed maybe, or what, just two lucky fish. Don't do this at home, see the swap over with a rod there. Another F1. Lively F1. Nice fish.
Even though it's slowed down for me, I've just heard that Polly started to catch a few. And by the looks on Warren's and Leslie's face, I think they're starting to get a bit worried now. So fingers crossed, Polly might actually come good for us. Gone a bit quiet fishing shallow now, so what I've done, I've gone on the bottom. I felt like there was just an odd liner but nothing on the bottom, and I actually missed a couple of bites, and then I foul hooked one, so I thought, well, there's some fish in the area, so they need pushing down. So what I've done is I've cupped in half a pot full of hemp with an handful of 8mm, an handful of 6mm pellets, and gone in over the top with worm again. And I didn't get any liners, but then I did get a proper bite, and I got an F1 about £3, and I've just actually got another one now. It just seems like we've caught those first few fish shallow, like mugfish, and now it's not fishing the best. Warren's stopped catching, Les hasn't really had a lot, and it's just a bit steady really, so it's just about trying to force an odd fish into feeding, and I think that's what this big pot's doing really. They're not massive fish, but the weight builders. That's probably £4, is that one? £4 on Les and Warren though, that's the main thing. So all I'm doing is just, I've got a size 16 hook on, finding a nice decent worm, and all I just do is just nip the head off and then hook the worm through where I've just nipped the head off, and then it threads over the shank of the hook. and then I'll hold it and just stretch the worm a little bit just to sort of stun it so it doesn't wiggle about too much. And that's it. Because there's another thing, because there's not that many bites, I'm having to wait a bit for bites. I'm using my pole support, which is helping out massively. It's a lot comfier to fish with. It frees up your hands for loose feeding, because I'm still loose feeding some pellets over the top, even though I'm now fishing on the bottom and black potting. I'm still loose feeding some pellets over the top for when because these fish will want to come back up and they'll start feeding shallow again later on, so I'm still covering both options by doing that. And also, because there's a little bit of a breeze on the lake now, it just keeps everything nice and still. That worm's going to be sat nailed on the bottom, not moving about, and it just, because obviously if your pole's moving about in the wind, it's an unnatural bait which is moving along the bottom. It just helps nail everything, keeps everything still. One of the biggest methods in summer when fishing long pole is fishing shallow, and sometimes people just get caught up in just fishing shallow. I always set up a deck rig, and like today it's like 7 foot deep, and I'll maybe set up 2 shallow rigs for fishing 1 foot and 2 foot, and then I'm fishing a full depth rig. And it's great because you can be catching shallow and then just pick up your deck rig, lay it in and hold it dead tight and watch it down, and sometimes you can catch them in that last couple of foot of water which you're not going to catch them on, obviously fishing shallow. It doesn't mean to say that you're going to catch on it, but it's always worth setting it up because it sometimes can pick out the bigger F1s, bigger carp, and then like today I've caught a few fish on it, some better fish as well, so it's always worth setting up a rig at full depth. You'll see I've got 2 different sizes of pellets with me. 4mm pellets and 6mm pellets. And generally, I always carry these to my peg as long as bait limits allow. Sometimes I carry 8mm pellets as well if I'm expecting to catch carp. I'll generally feed 4mm pellets for F1s, very rarely 6s, but it is worth trying feeding different amounts of 4mm pellets, going from 4 or 5 pellets to 6 or 10 pellets. You know, or even pouchfuls. It's different every day, which is why I generally carry 4s and 6s with me, and sometimes 8s if I'm expecting to catch bigger carp. Sometimes it can make such a difference just by changing the size of pellet what you're feeding. Maybe it's more noise, it's the speed they sink at, like sometimes 6s sink a bit faster so it forces the fish to grab them a bit quicker. It's just trial and error on each session really. Yeah, it's really important when fishing a long pole to make sure all your setup's really comfortable. It's important to have a box with extendable legs. Ideally you can have a spirit level bubble on your box to make sure it's level. This all helps with your posture, your back, everything. Your side tray needs to be where you can reach your bait nice and comfortable, so you can just pick your catapult up. You're not even really reaching to catapult baiting. Everything's just set up nicely so you're not having to struggle at all. Yeah, another key thing with fishing a long pole is making sure that your rollers are set up correctly so you can chip your pole back nice and smoothly. 2 rollers is ideal, but it depends on the ground and whether you've got 2 rollers, you can double up and use your rod bag as well. That's straight back onto my rod bag, then onto my back roller. Everything's nice and smooth, nothing's bumping about, jerking or anything. It just helps result in less fish lost and more fish in the net. Yeah, so it's equally as important having your rollers spaced correctly when shipping out. As you can see, that just comes off the roller nice and smoothly and everything's in a straight line. If that was too far back, that roller, it'd come off, the pole would come off and bounce off either possibly breaking your pole, tangling your rig as it bounces off, or even spilling your bait out of your pot on the end of your pole. So therefore it's really essential that you spend a lot of time at the beginning, before you start fishing, making sure your rollers are correctly positioned to make sure everything just runs smoothly for you.
Right, I mentioned earlier that I'd had a couple of chucks on the deck and hadn't had a bite. I've just been sort of half an hour without a bite or a sign shallow, so I just thought I'll have another couple of quick chucks on it, and I've just had 2 carp in 2 chucks straight away, and they're much bigger fish as well. The wind's got a bit nasty for the pellet wag now. I was getting maybe 1 or 2 seconds of decent presentation, whereas this proper big insert wag on the deck, I'm getting decent presentation now, and they're bigger fish, and that's 2 in 5 minutes. So Andy's getting a bit panicky next door, and hopefully I can get a few more. Right, the rig I'm using on the deck, very simple, just got a 5 gram loaded insert waggler, nice long float in this horrible skim, just to cut through that. I'm laying on maybe a couple of inches, again just to keep it still, and because of the wind and the tow, and I'm not really looking to catch on the drop on this one. I've got 4 number 8 shot down the line, again just to try and keep everything as still as I possibly can. Just chucking it over where I've been pinging pellets to catch shallow. But if I can carry on catching on this, I'll feed more pellets less often, just to try and keep them nailed on the bottom.
Another F1. They're coming regularly now. It's not the method I'd want to be fishing. I'd like to be fishing shallow out there on the pole, but just firing 6mm pellets over the top because I can get the distance. If I was firing 4s, I wouldn't be able to get the distance. I'm just chucking a straight lead over it. I'll show you the setup once I've got this fish in. Lively little fish. Nice F1. Put them in the net. Okay, I'll just show you my setup. Got a 20 gram matrix bomb, free running, coming down to a Horizon protector sleeve. And what that does, because most of the swivel wouldn't be knocking against, if I had a quick change bead or any sort of bead there on the line, be knocking against it would fray the line. With that, it just protects the line. All the wear is on that Horizon sleeve. Well worth using. So the swivel that's locked into the Horizon protector, 12-inch hook length, banded 6mm pellet. That's free running, so it's fish friendly. And when it comes down onto the Horizon protector sleeve, the line's protected as well by the sleeve, hence the name. Very simple setup, very effective. And let's just see if we can flick out there and get another one. Lovely fish to catch. Look at him. Oh, what a beauty. Just in the lip. Just in the lip. Let me show you him because he is an absolute beauty. How about that for an F1? What a beautiful fish. Let's catch another one.
What's going on is I'm constantly having to change and switch. Got lots of little tiny skimmers in the peg, and I've just completely wiped out and changed. Gone back to dry hard pellets. I've picked up two quick, well, say quick, they've been quicker bites than what I have been having. So change back to hard pellets been better. But they're few and far between. There's more fish coming because obviously we're getting a little bit further into the day. When I do have a fish, it's a better fish, but because I'm fishing that line, I've had a couple of 3 looks down the margins, nothing's shown, but you'd see signs there, the depths of it. But when I do get a fish, like I say, I'm picking the fish up that's moving in, because Mr. Butterfield has kindly restricted me. But makes it more interesting. We ain't giving up yet, are we? Warren's picking a few up now, but he's having to fish full depth at distance as well. Polly's catching well on his bomb at distance, and he's fishing long pole. So there's lots of fish out in the lake, not so many really close. So I need them to be starting to think about moving in towards me. Ooh. Angry little critter, isn't he? But we are playing catch up. How close is it, do you think? 20 pound behind? Without this fish. Every time he sees that net. He ain't ready yet, is he? It's all been about. Ooh, he'll do. Won't need many of them if we're going to catch up. Unit. Oh, be a pound. Just get in there, mate. We'll need a few more of them. I've done my best to try and throw him back. It's all gone to pieces. Look, they're watching, everything's off. So it just shows a quick little change like that. It's picked us up a better fish. We just need them to turn up down there.
Yeah, most of my fish today that I've caught shallow have been from when instantly after I've slapped my rig on the water. It seems to be that you can slap it 3 or 4 times and make quite a bit of noise. And then obviously the fish come into the noise and there's only one pellet there and that's yours. So it just gives you a massive chance of catching the fish that come in. Whereas feeding, obviously, when they come to the noise of the pellets hitting the water, there's maybe a dozen pellets there, or whatever you've fed, so that's just reducing the chances of the fish taking your hook bait. It's absolutely mega way of catching fish, really, and like I say, it just fools the fish, really. Still been feeding some pellets at the same time and then slapping my rig, but most of the fish that I've caught have come from when I've not fed and just slapped 3 or 4 times, and then I'll get a bite pretty much instantly. There's quite a few ways of slapping your rig on the water, really, in terms of how you hold your pole and things. I'm pretty much holding it one-handed with my right hand and balancing it on my left knee, and all I tend to do is just sort of lift my knee up a bit and then just throw the pole round, sort of around the top of my knee, shall we say. It's quite easy. There's no weight there really, because all the pressure's on your knee. I'd say some people like to take the pole out and hold it and just do it that way, but I find it's quite heavy that way. Like I say, it just reduces all the weight and it's all on your knee really. The way you set your rig up's very important as well. I mean, I generally have 2, maybe 3 rigs for this type of fishing. I'll show you, this is my main rig that I like to catch fish with when slapping. It's quite a long rig. Generally I'll start at a foot deep, slide that down. That's just a foot hook length with all the shot at the top of the hook length. So that's probably going to be about 13-14 inches in depth with the float. And then I've got a good 3 foot of line then from pole tip to float, which keeps the pole tip away from the water, away from your float, sorry. Obviously not spooking the fish as much, and also it allows me to keep changing my depths to different depths, and I can fish up to obviously 3 to 4 foot, and places like this where it's 6 foot, 7 foot deep, you can catch a lot of fish deep, shallow. The float I use is a 0.3 dibber, which is quite bulbous, which again, it adds to the noise. Because of the weight of the float, you've got lots of shot down your line, heavy float, nice bulbous float, that's another noise, and obviously there's the pellet. So every time I slap once, there's 3 loud noises, one from the float, one from the shot, and then one from the pellet, which again adds to the noise to draw the fish into the bait. So fishing on the bottom, I use a 0.8 float, main line's 0.18 and to an 0.16 hook length. I've just got a foot hook length with a bolt, simple bolt just at the top of it. I think sometimes people can fish a bit light, as in float size, especially here, but it's like 6-7 foot. A 0.8 just keeps everything stable, especially a bit of tow on the water, a bit of wind, just keeps everything nailed on, like we were on about earlier, fishing with the bump bar. It's critical that everything's real still, because like I say, it just looks unnatural when there's bait moving about and your rig's bouncing about all over the place. So it just aids with keeping everything nice and still and nailed on the bottom.
That for a lovely F1. Fin perfect. Let's catch another one. It's just amazing, just all of a sudden I was getting a lot of liners, and then I got one, then I got another one. I just simply got in a rhythm now where I'm just casting the bomb 18, 20 yards. And then firing, as I said, 2 pouchfuls of 6mm pellets over the top, 8 to 10 pellets. You're getting a lot of indications, and the tip just goes round. Not tightening up too tight, just putting a slight tension on the tip. They just virtually hook themselves. Taking it easy. One lot, 2 lots, and waiting for the take. Seem to get a lot of indications of fish go down near the pellet, little tap, 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 and they take it straight round. Obviously they feel the hook and bolt, and all the other little taps are just little liners. And then it's a strike, just pick up and they're on. Now another take again, but you can see I fed again just to cause some commotion there, but not feeding too much to keep the fish lower down. The more I feed, the more they're going to come up, and obviously my method, I've got to catch them on the bottom, fishing the straight lead or method. So where I'm fishing the straight leg now, I want them on the bottom. So not as regularly, and just a few more pellets each time, just to try and put them down. When they're a little bit later in the day, obviously they're feeding and more are going down. I've sort of educated them in that the pellets coming in and they'll go down rather than they know another lot's coming straight away, which it's not. They do scream off these F1s, they're always like big surge. I don't want to give up, and don't bully them, never bully the F1s. They're really lightly in the mouth they can be. They saw the net he turned, we'll get him this time when he comes up. Beautiful fish. Another 4 pounder I'd say, 3.5, 4 pound, big chunky fish. I'll put them in the keep net, beautiful fish. I don't know if you could see that then, I picked up then and I actually struck, or I haven't been striking, I've been lifting into them, but the rod I'm using is very forgiving. It's the Matrix Carpmaster 10 foot Mark II. It's a real soft rod. I'm using it with the softest tip that it comes with. Got this, exactly the same setup on the method feeder. The reason being, we're not chucking very far and it's really forgiving, especially these F1s when they nod. You need a soft blank, a soft rod, which this Carpmaster 10 foot is. Really is forgiving. Especially with me when I swap hands like I swapped hands now to net it. I need a rod that's supple. Very forgiving for any lunges. Another lovely F1 in the bag, look at that. Oh, beautiful fish. It's probably 5 pound that is. I'll lift it up and show you this one. It is a real fat fish. So unhook it. It's easily 5 pounds. Look at that beautiful F1. They don't come a lot bigger than that. What a beauty. Let's put them in the net and get another one.
I finally hooked a fish down the edge. Finally found one. I've been having to work through the cod, picking fish up on that short line. Obviously, because I've only got this area to work with. I've just picked my first fish up. I did lose one down there earlier, but it was only a decent sized skimmer. But it's getting to that time of day where they're going to start having a munch, hopefully. I think we need it, don't we? But if they're all that stamp, it's not going to take long, is it? It's just as the damage already been done, my friend. What are you giving me for him? 2? I'm just going to top that up now with another pot, because not a full one, just a few more dead reds and half a pot just to concentrate. I don't want to put them to come away from kinder potting it. I don't want to do that unless they start queuing. Ideally it'd be nice if it was a little bit closer and I could be just throwing a few loose offerings now and again, but I was just tempted to make a load of noise and put a lot of pellet in because it was getting desperate, no signs of fish. And I thought to myself, I'll ship that back open another bag of pellets, crash a load in, see if I can get something in, make it sound like I've packed up. And it's just gone dink. And we're away. That was on a bunch of dead reds. There was no liner, there was no swirl. Normally you get tail patterns and you get indications, and it's just literally from out of nowhere, dink. When you're margin fishing, one of the key things that a lot of anglers get wrong is just to get into the peg, think, oh, that spot looks lovely, it looks like it holds fish, start fishing away without really finding out what's going on underneath, clearing any of the problems out of the peg, such as branches, reeds that come underneath there, root systems even. And one of the best bits of advice I can give you is to, when you've picked the areas that you're thinking, you start plumbing around, have a real dig about on the bottom. Even if you've got to get down there yourself, I like to sometimes get in for undercut banks, get down, rip out roots, just pull and clear all the debris away so nothing can snag up. It's a nice clear area for the fish. Also your line of sight, get some shears out, trim out if you're allowed, that is, but trim away reeds, trim away twigs, keep a clear line of sight, because there's nothing worse when you're looking down at your marker and your float's there, then a little branch flicks through and you're like this and you're tossing backwards and forwards and they're getting in the way of the pole. When you want to keep the pole still and you're going to constantly keep moving away and moving around branches, you want to be able to get clear, clean pegs, clean sight, clean bottoms. Clean bottoms! you're like Shane, do you want me to change that or you leave that in? Now bait, that's another thing that you need to think about when you're margin fishing. Not just what bait, but when to feed it. I like to feed in a match situation the hours, towards those hours when I think that carp are most likely to feed. And on short lines and in margins, it's the later stages of your match. If you keep piling it in and piling it in and piling it in right from the start, you're going to get a frenzied situation at the end and it's one hell of a mess. So as a rule of thumb, unless I see other anglers around the lake, just keep an eye on it, who are catching fish, then I would wait until at least 2.5 hours into the match before I actually feed the margin lines that I want to feed. Like I say, just be mindful and keep an eye on the rest of the people who are fishing in case they start catching from the start, and that would then prompt me to feed. And when I'm about to feed, this is the sort of stuff that I'm going to put in. A ground bait that's heavy, very coarse, full of particles, because when it goes in, I don't want any of the fish that are coming around swirling to disturb it all and push it all out the way. That's not what you want. You don't want to end up feeding an area that's going to spread and spread and spread, because then you're going to get fish all along your peg. Like I say, think about your particle sizes because of your depth. Coarser ground baits, corn, bigger pellets, meat, all these sorts of baits. And the most popular one over the last few years has been a favourite of mine, the dead reds. They sit and lie in amongst the ground bait, they come in mooching, you get a bunch of those on, you're bagging. So this is a typical margin rig that I use. I've got 0.18 pound micron to 0.16. That's a 16s carp bagger. A little bulk of Easy Shot just above a 6-inch hook length. And then it'll either be a 4x12 or a 4x14 strung, nice and strung. And this is important because you can be ragged through reeds, bodied float with a nice thick hollow visible tip. And that's another important feature, because when you're fishing down these margins, the reflection of the far reeds can often look, you want it to stand out, they can look like a float. There's some tips they blend in if it's too fine, so you want a nice visible tip. Little short line for this one, because I could, on this rig, because I could get to the pallet and I would just line it over so I could disguise the pole tip anyway. Sometimes I leave it a bit longer if I can't get to cover as such and I want to keep the pole away. But that is it, dead simple, nice and easy. That's always the best way to keep you fishing. The other rig that I've used was for the shorter line, because my peg's been all about short fishing today. And this is the other rig that I've been using today. Just a typical pellet rig really. Favourite float of mine, the Matrix Series 7. Well, I couldn't be without that float, to be honest, one that I've used for a very long time. I've got a lot of confidence with it, very versatile float. Nice little hollow bristle again. That's a 0.3, it's not that deep, because I'm fishing relatively short. I've got a bulk of strong 8s. I always like to use 8s because you get a lot of indication. You can dot the float down, but if one of the 8s gets moved, the slightest bit of movement, it gets shown through the tip. Main line, that's just 0.14 power micron, and that's down to 0.13 or 12.5. And this time it's an 18s carp bagger. The elastic, which I used today for all of the rigs, has been the 12s hollow elastic. Sometimes if I'm in snaggy situations in margins, I will put up a solid elastic, and that can be a real bonus. And Warren put me onto this on a match that we fished on the Glebe a couple of years back. He went from nowhere to first in a matter of an hour fishing with a solid elastic. So I still have some of those setting up. They're a forgotten thing these days with puller bungs and puller kits, but because this is more open water and I thought I could catch some F1s, I went for a 12, give them a chance to run and swim and cruise away so they don't spook the other fish.
Right, I've been half an hour or so now without a bite. The wind's got worse. I just can't feed pellets accurately at the distance I want to fish. So I'm going to have a quick go on the new bagging waggler. It'll get a load of bait exactly where I'm casting. Fishing 1.5 feet deep. Just hopefully it might attract some fish in, so I just can't feed pellets where I'm actually wanting to fish anymore. So we'll see what happens. Right, so I've just had 4 chucks on the bagging waggler. So there should be a nice cloud and plenty of feed out there now. So I'm just going to have a chuck with a normal waggler over top to see if it's worked. Right, well, that seems to have done the job, because I've just chucked the normal waggler back out there after that quiet spell and got a fish straight away, which it feels like a better fish as well. Which after the last half an hour is welcome. It's more like it. That'll help. That was a bit of a liner. Ooh, you're moving too fast, and I don't think it's right. I'm not giving you my love tonight. Hurry!
Better click that, Anna. 7. 7. This is where I'm going to have me a run. I can feel it.
Well, I've just changed over to the method feeder, hoping that it'd get me maybe some bigger fish, because I had a carp on the straight lead. I just thought perhaps a lot of carp had moved in. So I thought if I chuck the method over the same area, maybe the bigger carp will home in on it. But this first chuck, I think it's an F1 again. Yeah, it's an F1. In fact, smaller than I was getting on the straight lead, but it was worth it because I thought it was worth a chuck. I thought maybe we're a few pound ahead of Les and Warren. Les has been catching a few carp this last part of the match, but I just thought it's worth a go. That's the thing with match fishing, if you think of something, although you're catching, I'm a firm believer if you're catching, just stick with it, but I just thought it was worth a go just to see if we'll get some bigger fish.
Got some fight in them, these fish here. Proper healthy fish. These boys. £3.
Let's give it another chuck and just see. Just worth it, just worth trying. If it snatches a big double figure carp, we're quids in.
Where've they been?
Well, it's 15 minutes and this is my second fish and I've been waiting and it feels like another F1. So what I'm going to change back to the straight lead to see if I can nick a few more fish quicker. But just before I do that, I'll net this fish and I'll just show you the feeder I'm using. It's the Matrix Evolution range and just how you can change them. It's very, very unique and very quick and essential if you're chucking on a calm day, if you're chucking a light feeder and you need to change to a slightly heavier feeder to get the distance. There's another nice F1 this is. There we go. Another F1. It was slower than the straight lead. Look him and I'll just show you. Right, I've just took the hook length off, a quick change bead. Now, that's a 22 gram. If I wanted to put a 30 gram, 40 gram, 60 gram to get the distance, it's wind, if I'm not hitting my clip, very simple. Pull out the tail rubber, it's on the line, and pull out, there's a slit in each stem of the Evolution range of feeders. There's a slit, so if I put a tail rubber on my main line, tie my quick change bead on, and simply I can put any feeder on there. I just pass it through the back of the feeder, as you've seen like so with this one. Drop it down, take hold of it, pull the line into the slit that's on there, and then just push the tail clip over, and there you are, it's on, as simple as that. And I can put any feeder on there of any weight of our range of these Evolution feeders to hit the distance that I need to. And then all I have to do then is simply pull the two-part bead apart, put my hook length on and push it up, and there we're ready to go. Very simple, and with that system I can put any of the Evolution range of feeders on there. I can put the pellet feeder on there. I can even put the cage feeder on there by just slipping the tail rubber on and putting the leg clip on, and then the cage feeder will fit to that. So a unique way of putting any of our range of feeders on there without breaking down the line. Very simple, very effective, and in match conditions, when you need a quick change, very important. I'll now give the straight lead a go.
Well, there's a few fish moving about now. I've started to put a run of fish together. I've been told we've got about 30 to 40 minutes left. Polly's absolutely bagged on the bomb. Andy's had some on the long pole shallow. Warren's caught on these. But this is my time now to catch up. And they're all good fish. That's the thing. But like I say, now I've got a chance to plunder a few and try and catch back. Polly's had a lot of fish, a lot of fish. It's on.
Well, this is it. It's been a brilliant match today, absolutely fantastic. We thought it was clear cut at the halfway point, but Les has come back and it's going to be really, really close. It's been an exciting end to the match, and that's it for these guys. So that's it, all out, we're done. We're going to weigh in now and see who's come out on top. I ain't got a clue how to call this.
$45.2. 70.
Well done, Warren.
71.2.
Well done, Warren. It's 116 pounds 4 ounces, Warren. Well done, mate. Good weight.
One bed.
Well done, Andy. 51 pound exactly. Warren's first weigh was 45, so could be very tight, these two.
48, 12.
Well done.
99 pound 12 ounces for Andy Galdar. Thank you, man.
73.14.
Well done, Les.
76. 74.2. No, 77.2.
Trying to do much?
77.2.
151 pound exactly. 151 pound. Well done, Les.
86.6.
What's more?
Yeah.
89 dead.
Spot on. Well done, Mark.
Cheers.
Get in, bagger.
£275.2 to them, to 267.4 to us. So they done us by £7.14.
Oh,
Well done.
well done, bagger.
Good day. Good
Well done,
day.
bagger.
£151, don't you?
Did you do all that MPEG? He's man on the MPEG has 100 and what? Right then, well, that's it. It's all over. The results are in. And I think, oh well, we've witnessed a fantastic tussle, haven't we? It's gone one way and another. Different methods at different times of work. Polly's absolutely entered it. 275 to 267. We've just come up short, me and my buddy from Norfolk, but the baggers, Andy and Mark,
No, but
has done us.
it's very interesting
Yeah.
for you guys watching it to see the different methods that we fished, the different approaches we took or were given to use, and they weren't ones we would have chose.
No.
It just shows fishing those methods correctly, the weights you can still get.
I think you could see as well, if you looked along the length at different times, different people were catching. If you were to build a match out the 4 methods, what weight would we have done?
Oh, yeah.
And it just goes like
Yeah.
methods that you thought were going to
Yeah.
do well today haven't
Absolutely.
done well as well.
Yeah.
So it just goes
And
to
for
show.
what I've
Yeah.
Could have
caught,
started the match fishing like you did and then changed
And then
to
switch.
Waggler when I caught.
Yeah, yeah.
You've had to
And then
have
come in the
pound, wouldn't you?
margins like
Yeah.
there's.
yeah,
Imagine if Polly or you would have both fished pellet wag and a bomb.
yeah,
How many
Yeah.
fish would you have had then?
yeah. Because there were so many fish early to be caught that were up in the water.
If Andy
That's
could
why
have
I
come
struggled.
short,
Yeah,
if I could have gone long,
Yeah.
it's incredible. What
Yeah.
a fishery. Right, that brings it all to a close. I'd like to thank all the guys here, Mark, Andy, Warren, the team, and you guys for watching. We'll see you again soon.